What are you doing in my swamp? This was just an example of abusive relationships.
That was very, very...
That was very toxic.
Yes.
You see, this is an example of our topic for today, which is toxic people and getting rid of them and recovering from that.
Because we know in the DID community and everyday communities, it's really hard to identify who your toxic people are, especially in the beginning, and it can be hard to leave them. So
yeah, leaving them is probably the most difficult thing about toxic people and toxic relationships. So we thought we'd share some things that helped us and some things that we found, and this might be helpful for people out there.
And so when we're going over the identifying part, we did a lot of intense research into this because there's not just a few ways, there's a lot of ways, and some of them don't seem very obvious but are.
So a few good ways of identifying toxic people is times when they tell you to change who you are to be more like what they want you to be. It's not like helping you grow as a person, helping you change and getting over things that have held you back. It's more so, I need this, so you need to be that. And when they sap your energy, that's another thing. Like when you come home from like talking to them or hanging out with them, you just feel completely drained instead of feeling refreshed by wholesome human contact. That's another thing that's a big red flag. And when they tell you their problems, but when it comes to you, they don't want to help, which is something we have a lot of experience with.
Stacy
so
trademark.
Much experience. Please tell me you can put the Stacy thing on there.
Yes, of
Stacy.
course.
Stacy and some other people. They want you to be that person that they can go to whenever they have any problems, and you don't need anything in return. Just like someone to listen to, basically an unpaid therapist. If you're being used as an unpaid therapist, that there's an issue.
Another thing is when you never seem happy, like you think in your head, oh, this is gonna get better, it's just a rough patch. This relates to them telling you their problems, because if you can't like express yourself, you're never happy. You can't fulfill yourself.
You can't grow and develop as a person. You're kind of just that role that they desire and require you to be.
Yeah. There doesn't seem to be trust either on either of your ends. So you don't trust them. Like every time you bring something up, you're scared that they're going to retaliate, or they don't trust you. Like you feel like every time you go out, they're asking you where you are, and they want to know every little detail of your day.
So you're always checking your phone, not in the classic millennial addicted to your phone way, but in the stressed, fearful way.
Yes. When they seem constantly angry, or you are constantly angry and you aren't that person usually. We experienced this with Stacy a lot, especially at the very end. You guys noticed this.
Yeah, we noticed that.
She would wake us up in the morning when she'd come home, and we'd have like 2 hours of sleep, and she worked night shift, and she'd wake us up and she tried to have full-on conversations, and it hit one point where we literally screamed at her and went outside because we just couldn't be around her anymore. So if you seem to be angry and you're not an angry person, you're wondering why, that's probably it.
Like if you tend to lash out and that's really uncharacteristic for you, then it's not inherently you. It's not always you being a bad person. It could be like a reaction because of a stressful situation that you're dealing with like consistently. If someone that toxic is in your life, it really impacts you in ways you wouldn't expect. Another way to tell is if it feels really one-sided, like if you're putting in all the effort to maintain that relationship or friendship or whatever it is, and they're not doing anything to like reciprocate that at all, that's definitely a sign of something being wrong.
An example of that would be like you messaging them first every single day, and if you don't message them, they just don't talk to you. Like,
But we do that sometimes.
but we know you have stressful situations going on, and when you can, you do message first. It's felt on both ends that it's just kind of like a mutual, if you're having a rough day, don't message. It's okay, I'll message you first type of thing. Eventually you'll message if we don't message.
Yeah.
So that's, but
when it's not something because of anxiety.
Yeah. Or you're the one that is planning all your dates. They don't plan the dates. They don't pay for anything. You are always the one to pay for something. We kind of split payments.
Yeah.
And
we share things. We go 50-50 on a lot of things, and that's reasonable.
Yeah. So that's...
Yeah. And another thing is if you feel belittled because of them, like, we had a long-term relationship with someone. This was before Stacy. This was a long time ago. And we were basically treated as an inconvenience rather than a human being. And that's freaking whack. So if you start feeling that way, that's bad.
Yeah.
We don't want you to feel that way. So stick around for a few more minutes and learn how to get that away from you.
Yes.
And another one is when you bring up your issues, they bring up their own, and it's not in a helpful way. Can also be known as narcissism. Like, when you're talking to someone like, hey, I'm having a bad day, this is happening, and then it turns into a whole spiel about things that are going on in their life, and you didn't even get to finish your idea.
And we're not talking about the people who relate to you. So you guys bring up something, oh, I had a rough day, this happened. We're like, oh yeah, this happened to us this one time, and this is what helped. So that's the healthy way of doing that. But the other way is completely taking over the conversation and letting it go on about themselves.
And, like, not even leaving room for you to speak or even express a thought. And all you can do is just be like, yeah, It's the worst.
It really is. Lack of communication. You feel like you can't talk to them about almost anything. Again, with Stacy, this happened so much.
Yeah, it did. It really did.
Especially from her end to you guys.
Yeah, she was keeping secrets.
Yeah.
Telling lies. Yes, papa.
If you didn't catch our live stream, go look at it.
Or just check out Johnny.
True that. Yeah, so if you have like an insecurity, something like, oh, I feel like you're not doing this, and if you don't feel comfortable saying that to them because it's the beginning of a relationship, that's fine, but when it gets to the point where you're a year or two in and you can't say, hey, I'm having a problem with this behavior that you're putting out, that's becoming an issue. Because you can't openly share what's going on.
Communication is important in relationships.
It really is.
I'm probably going to say that so many times in our abusive relationship video. It's going to be my catchphrase.
If you find yourself avoiding them, so you spend extra time going to the library or going to the gym or doing other things if they're living in your same household, and you do everything you possibly can to avoid going home. That's, yeah. And this isn't just like relationship either. This can be with parents and siblings, other people, roommates,
friends, anybody in your life.
But so, and if they don't live with you, you find yourself just trying to slowly cut contact and not quite go over there as often. You don't, yeah.
Or avoiding the place, taking an extra long walk home if you pass by them, usually. Alternate scenic routes.
And no support. That I kind of covered that. It's just no support whatsoever. You lock yourself in your room basically because you're having a depression episode, and they go, "Hey, can you make me some food?" They don't even ask what's wrong. That happened before.
Stacy literally did that?
Yeah.
Jesus H. Christ.
Yeah.
Make your own goddamn food.
Right.
Another thing is when they need to control you, what you do, And complain when you see friends and like make you be so that you're constantly checking your phone and like constantly talking to them whenever you're out and doing things. That's not good. And not being able to work through issues either. Like if you bring up something in a conversation you had an issue with, you can't like get to the root of it or express why that's happening. You kind of just get shut down and pushed aside and then have to listen to everything that's wrong with them again.
Or in Stacy's example, she would get angry whenever we would bring up a subject, and she would punch walls. That is a hot thing in a toxic relationship. That is like intro to almost domestic violence relationship.
Mm-hmm. Which ties in with the next bullet point, when you're afraid to leave for fear of retaliation, or I would also put like fearful of talking to them about things, or even like just speaking or looking at them for fear of retaliation.
Mm-hmm. And you're always unsure. So you're walking on eggshells around them because you don't know. They always keep you guessing on what behaviors is and is not okay for them.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't really do what you enjoy. Say you're working on an art piece and they walk in, they're like, why are you working on that? You should be paying attention to me.
Yeah.
So you're not really sure of what exactly is going to be an issue for them. Your no doesn't seem to be a no to them. So, hey, can you go ahead and do the dishes? No, I don't really feel up to it. This is a very mild example of something that can happen with parents and everything. And they say, well, I really need you to do the dishes. And they just go on and on and on until you feel like so pressured into it that you're just like, fine, I'll do it.
And when you find yourself lowering your standards just for them, that's another bad thing. Like if you are just like surprised by the treat of somebody listening to you speak about something for more than 30 seconds, that's like, you're getting used to things that are way below that standard and not acceptable, and probably not even acceptable on like a human being level.
Mm-hmm. Or when you go into a relationship or a friendship with these standards. This is where I hold myself. This is how I expect people to treat me. And slowly it just goes like this as you hang out with them more and more and more. And finally you're here and you don't realize it until something happens that's extra bad and just like throws it under the bus and you're just like, oh, whoa, what was I expecting that to, ow, whoa.
Yeah. Oh, jeez, man.
Oh, jeez, man.
Willow bit me. That's why I was cracking my knuckles just now. I'm wounded. She's got sharp teeth, but she's a sweet brown baby.
And this last one is, to them you can't do anything right. You do the dishes, it wasn't the right way. You clean your room, it wasn't the right way. You asked them how their day was, and you didn't fully express interest in what was going on with them. That's what I mean by that. Okay. So now we're going to get to the middle portion, which is probably one of the hardest portions.
Cutting them off.
Step 1 is admit they're a toxic person. You've gone through your checklist that we just gave you, and they fit
many of them.
One or more.
Honestly, one or more is probably pretty bad.
All
if it's like a repeated offense, then that would definitely fit the bill for someone being toxic. But if they're just having a bad day and it's like once or twice, you figure out why they're doing that, then that's, I guess, okay, everyone has their days.
Mm-hmm.
If this is something that's ongoing, then you need to take some of these steps to keep yourself safe.
Yes. And admitting they're a toxic person can be hard because if it's a parent, you've been with them all your life,
mm-hmm.
and you don't want to admit they're a toxic person because you want them in your life, but at the same time, is it really benefiting you? So you gotta take yourself from the situation and really admit that they're a toxic person so you can start moving on.
Mm-hmm. Now the second step is to think about the perks of removing them from your life. Like, will you be able to speak freely now? Will you be able to go out and do more of what you would like to do? Things that would just make you happy? Or how that decrease in negativity in your life would make you feel better and like more at peace. Like if you have a day where you don't talk to them or don't hear about things that's going wrong from them and you just feel like there's a weight lifted off your shoulders, think about how that would feel every day. Think about how much better that would make you feel.
Just picture them not in your life. What would happen if every day you're going about your stuff and in that situation they weren't there? They weren't telling you that they're having a rough day when you just said that you were having a rough day. Step 3, before cutting them out, surround yourself with supportive friends, letting them know what you're going to do, so if you try backing out, they can help you move forward and finish the task of leaving that person. So healthy people are the best way to go. Not saying that mentally ill people aren't the way to go. I'm talking about like non-toxic people.
Yeah. Healthy in this video means not toxic.
Yes.
And like good for you altogether to be around.
They make you feel better about yourself.
And step 4 is to write a goodbye letter. Even if you never send it, you'll still feel better having written it out, like the reasons why and everything. And it's good for like self-validation and stuff because you can see like reasons why you'd want to leave them, and it can help you even make up your mind about leaving them if you're on the fence about that. And it's kind of like one of those letters you can like crinkle up and throw away. Like if you don't want to send it, you don't have to. This isn't like an obligation. You have to do these if you want to leave someone. It's kind of expressing your feelings to yourself even, and that makes things feel a lot better, even if it's just writing it down on a note on your phone.
For sure. Step 5, block them on social media, like your phone, or if you live close to them or with them, get a restraining order so they can't come back into your life, especially if you feel like they're violent, or if you know they would harass you on social media or something like that. Just completely block them out of your life. Change your phone number or block their phone number, and just try and completely cut them out. Because
blocking some toxic people is good. I'm just like reminiscing about how great it was to block Chris. Like he was probably the most abusive relationship we've ever been in. I'd say for us, worse than what we experienced from Stacy. Like it was bad, but he was like going off and ranting at us, and then I was like, okay, I said my goodbyes, block, 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 and I was like, sweet freedom.
It feels amazing.
It's liberating. It's good. And then something to keep in mind, if they threaten you, like, physically, like, you should probably call the cops. If they threaten themselves, it's not your responsibility to make sure they're okay. You're responsible for your well-being, not theirs. Like, if they hurt themselves and blame it on you, that's not on you. If they say something like, I'm going to kill myself if you leave me, that's like the textbook thing about like toxic things. That's a ginormous red billboard of this person's toxic, and you should get the H out of there because that's not acceptable.
Yeah.
And that's not on you. But they probably won't even do that if you do leave them. It's a big threat. It's like one of those ultimatum things that the other end they'll never go through on, and they just keep you there from fear.
It's their way of trying to keep you as close to them as physically possible, or guilt tripping you with parents and friends and things like that. So, alright, so recovery. This is to help you get over them and move on.
Once you block them.
Yes. Don't give them any power after you leave, meaning don't stalk them or look at their profiles or anything like that.
As tantalizing as it seems, don't do it.
You're only torturing yourself because you're thinking, oh, have I done the right thing? And you sometimes just question yourself. So
it is the laundry hour. We'll get that after this is filmed.
So you start questioning yourself, and that's just not a good thing to get into. So don't give them power over you.
And it's okay to realize if you miss them, like that's just a feeling that's normal and human for you to have. But know it's only a feeling, and what they did to you is not excusable. We think about this a lot, like almost like a death. Like, that sounds a little bit extreme, but cutting somebody off out of your life like that is somewhat of a loss, especially if they were a significant part of your life. And missing them is kind of like a stage in mourning, I guess. But letting it get to the point of where it drives you to go back to talk to them can be dangerous and something that you shouldn't give it the power to do. It's okay to look back and realize this was nice. We had good times together, but it did change. And yes, those times were nice and could have been healthy in the past, but it didn't end up that way, and it most likely will not be able to go back to being that way.
Mm-hmm. Seek comfort in good friends. It will make things easier and soften the blow. If you need to isolate yourself for a while, go ahead and do that. But in future days, try and surround yourself with friends that understand what you were going through and really agree with you that they were a toxic person. Because if they're still friends with the person you just cut out of your life, you should probably cut them out too.
Depending on the person. If it's like their best friend, then yeah, probably.
Yeah.
But if they're a good person, I don't know.
Because if they associate with the toxic person and they think their behavior was okay, they're in their own way a toxic person.
Now I'm just thinking about the situation with Stacy and how we actually made a friend of like somebody else that she was abusive to. If it's a situation like that, if you end up talking to people who that same person has damaged, that could actually be helpful. Exhibit A. We both went through the same thing and we can relate to each other because of what happened. So if you happen to be friends with someone else who was hurt by that person, that could be good, and you guys could both find companionship and have that be good for you.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing you could do is see a therapist for coping mechanisms if your usual things don't work. Like, therapists are there to help you, and they can give you some other good methods on how to get through these times and other ways to help you. Or if you need someone to vent to, therapists are literally there for that, and it's really helpful. Like, don't be afraid to see a therapist because of a person. That's how we started therapy in college. Was because of some chick freshman year who was really awful to us. But it was really helpful to have someone to talk to about that and help you get through that with healthy coping mechanisms.
Mm-hmm. If you're thinking about going towards unhealthy coping mechanisms, it would be a good idea to seek out a therapist's advice just so you can get healthier ones to go with to kind of like ease it off.
Create balance.
If you need isolation, check in with someone close to you, so that way they know that you're okay, but you can still keep yourself isolated for the time being. If you feel like you can't or don't have anyone to reach out to us on our Facebook page or down in the comments, or we have Instagram and all these other tools that you can use to reach out to us. So feel free to use those tools because we care and we understand a big portion of toxic relationships with parents and other halves and friends even.
Admittedly, I suck at responding to everything. When you're a college student, things get real chaotic real fast, and there's not a lot of breaks in between. But they're great at responding to things. So in our little closing picture today, we'll have their social media instead of just the community or our social media.
And we also have our Discord up and running, so if you feel like that's a good place to go to, there's plenty of nice people there that would be able to help.
Make some friends there and foster some healthy relationships.
Love yourself. It's important to remember that self-care after a major change is important. It can be hard, but it's still there because you need to help yourself feel better about everything. So take in some self-care, and yeah. And if you didn't see our video on that, we can leave that in the description too.
Yeah. So, you know, we talk about Stacy a lot, and you guys may not know who Stacy is, what she did, why do we use her name as a meme. In our next, duo video here, we are going to be covering who Stacy is, what she did, and why we do not like her. Why we use her as a reference as toxic people all the time. So if you have some specific questions about this, I'll give you a little bit of details, and you can ask things like, she was another system, and we had a polyamorous three-way relationship. It didn't work.
No, it did not.
Polyamory can work and has the potential to be beautiful, but this was an instance in which it was not.
Very much so. So if you have anything you're just wanting to ask, pop it down in the comments so we can cover it in the video.
Alright, that is how to get rid of toxic people. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you all in the next video.
Like and subscribe, and have a good day.